Hello there, and as you've clicked on this video, I assume you didn't know that Technic pins had completely different reasons for being certain colours and completely different purposes dependent on the piece you've selected. So let's waste no time and get straight into this video. Now, as you can see, I have chosen these four very special drawers to be here today so we can look over the different purposes of each of the Technic bricks. Now, I don't have all of them as a lot of them were discontinued back in the 80s, and a lot of these colours didn't make it past the early designs of Lego, but there are a few different pieces in here. A few of them I have mixed together, and I just want to show you the different purposes of each of these Technic elements. So I think we'll start with the piece that made me notice the difference, and that is this Technic pin here, which is technically a half pin with a stud. As you can see, one side has the Technic pin element and the other side just has the stud. But in order to see the different purposes, we're going to need some Technic elements, so it's a good thing I haven't yet packed away all the bricks from my legal or illegal building techniques video. And as you can see, I do have three colours. Now, the grey and the blue are actually identical, but for the sake of being able to show this on camera, I will use all three of them, and I have actually used the blue ones as recently as in my 332nd Bark Speeder with the sidecar, which was a remodelling of the Swamp Speeder Battle Pack. Now, if we were to take this long yellow brick and put it on the middle one, you can see that it is nice and loose, and even the blue one enables it to spin pretty much as freely as it wants. Obviously, it will obey gravity above pretty much anything else, but if we add it to the red one here, you can see it just doesn't. There is no effect of gravity on this piece. Well, can't say no effect scientifically, but it's not making it spin around. There is no like wobble in it at all, even if you give it a solid shape. And why is that? Well, this red Technic stud on the side has friction ridges, and what that enables the piece to do is basically just hold itself up and can hold quite a bearable weight. Now, if I was to put too much pressure on it, eventually it will turn around and you can still pose it any which way you want. But as of 2022, this is a brand new piece last year. It only comes in the colour red and dark bluish grey, and is really one of the biggest elements that Technic have recently got, and it's just a game changer for displaying things, as you no longer need to have two studs to clip on so that the brick don't move, and can in fact hold most pieces with just the one stud. Now, of course, this piece did come out in 2022, and the Technic pins with studs have been being made since the 80s. In fact, 1981 is when it came out, and even then it only come out in light grey. Of course, now that has become light bluish grey in 2002, and even in 2001 we did get this blue element, which we're actually yet to see this year. So I don't know if they've outdone the blue element, or perhaps they just couldn't include it in any of this year's sets. We'll have to see next year if it does come back. And there's even some white elements that have been used since 2002, and even in this year we've got, unlike the blue ones. So it'll be really interesting if we do see any of the blue ones again. Of course, I've got loads in my tub here, so I'm not expecting them to leave Lego anytime soon, but I only actually have three of these red ones, two of which I used in my recent Millennium Falcon Holiday Special diorama. So I'm only left with this one, and I'll have to use it very wisely until I pick up a load off Bricklink. You heard me say friction ridges, and that is something you'll hear a few more times this video, as that is really the difference between certain elements, especially when it comes to Technic. The friction ridges are the big part, as that dictates whether a pin can freely move or hold its own. So now we'll go over two Technic pins, and you can see there are mostly two colours here. I've got black, and I also have this grey and yellow. Now, there are actually three types of Technic pins, one of which completely outdated. It's a different design that I don't think had these gaps in the side. So that was only used from 82 until 89 and only came in black, where it was then replaced with this element, which actually comes with friction ridges. But before we got this black piece, we did end up getting a non-ridged version, which came in light grey, which is now light bluish grey, and also yellow, which was only introduced in 2021 and continues to be in sets to date. So I'll use that once again to show the difference between them. it's a bit easier to tell the difference between them as they are more, and we'll take a closer look in a second. But just briefly, you can somewhat see there's a little extra notch here and there on the black piece, and the grey and yellow are just completely smooth. It's hard that they've only included the ridged versions in black because it doesn't show up on cameras very well at all, but if you catch it in the light, you can sometimes see the ridges. So we'll start with black this time, and you can see it's holding its own no matter where I position it. In fact, you could probably add quite a bit of weight to this, and if you had multiple of them, of course, it will just lock it in the one position. But for the grey and yellow, it's a bit more fluid. You can wobble it around and it just moves whichever way it wants to, which tends to be with gravity, as this is a ridgeless Technic pin, and that means it's loose in both the grey brick and the red. So in fact, technically speaking, either side of this will be spinning. Once again, down to ridges, and it's very interesting. We've got the two pieces. Of course, they have very, very different purposes. In fact, once again, much like the red piece, I only have one of these yellow Technic pins at my disposal, but yellow is pretty new to Lego. The reason they have different colours and they introduce different colours down the line is just because they fit better with the themes of sets. I can guarantee this yellow was likely used in the Pac-Man model if they needed any of these pieces. But if I give you one last close-up between the two, you can somewhat see the ridges on the black piece. Perhaps I'll put up an image off Bricklink which might be able to show it better. And once again, the black pieces are the ones with ridges. So it's quite easy to tell the difference between the two with the Technic with the stud on the end. Of course, the red and the dark grey are the ones with ridges compared to the white, grey and blue that don't have. And with these, the black ones have ridges and the light grey or yellow do not. There are no extra colours that you might find yourself using because these are the only ones that Lego make. Now, it gets very interesting as we come to our last draw. These three are now finished with. There is no difference between the red and the black short axles, as these are just the same piece in two different colours. So that's quite nice that we don't have to know the difference between axles, though there is quite a nice feature of axles which every time they get increased and size up, they go between greys and yellows and reds and blacks. So let me grab a drawer and show you. So here we have my other Technic axle drawers, and you can see in this drawer we have a bunch of different sizes, but we have some greys and yellows which are just as long as so. And then if I grab the black and the red one and move it into camera so you can see them, they are in fact a bit longer than the yellow and grey. Perhaps it's easier if I hold them in the middle. You can see that different colours have different lengths, which is lovely. They're enabled to be mixed. If I want a 3 length, I go for yellow and grey. If I want a 4 length, I go for the red and the black. And similar enough, here you can see all the grey ones are shorter than the red and black. So if I want I think that's a 5 length, I'll go for the grey. 6 length for the black, similar enough. 7th length is grey or yellow, and the 8th length is red and black. This one should not be in that drawer. And even with the longest of the axles that I can fit in the drawer, you can see the grey one's just one shorter than the black. It's lovely of Lego to do it. It makes it so much easier when pulling out axles for mocks, and as you can see, they can be stored in only 4 sections. You could even get away with storing them in 3 sections and whacking them with your bigger Technic pieces. So thank you Lego for that. But now back to the video. Sorry for getting distracted, but we have these Technic axles, or Technic pins with the axles on the end, which have only been used since the late 70s. It's in fact the second oldest piece here to the original Technic pins, as in the 70s Lego did have a whole switch around with Technic and just sort of rebooted all the pieces, updated designs and improved generally how the system worked. So blue is of course this time the one with the ridges, because they couldn't keep the colours the same as the Technic pins with studs or any of the other pieces and just had to mix it up for this. Now the Technic axle pins with the ridges do come in blue, black and white. White and black were only used in select, probably Bionicle sets between 2002 and 2006, and the blue ones with the ridges have been used since 2002 and continue to be used in sets today. Now the ones without the ridges, the light tan colour here have been used as far back, as I said, as 1978, where they came in a light grey, which of course became light bluish grey. They were also used in a black colour from 82 to 84, and we've seen them in tan since 2002, and most recently we just got a new colour of these in the Batman Shadow Box, and that was in pearl dark grey. So it's great to be seeing some new Technic pieces still, and as you guessed, the ones without the ridges just flow smoothly, but if you were to use the blue side with the ridge, it sticks in a lot more firm and you can position it how you want. So you can definitely see why the blues are a bit more common, especially when it comes to Star Wars sets, as you want the most strength for your pieces. The only problem is when you take them out, they do get stuck in the Technic hole. So you do have to just shimmy them out. But once again, as you saw in one of my recent videos, the brick separator does have a Technic pin which pretty much pushes them all the way out. So very nice of Lego to have gifted us with brick separators. It saves using your nails, using your teeth, and just helps preserve some of the Lego bricks. The last one for this video is of course the 3-length Technic pin, or the triple Technic pin, the 1.5 Technic pin. It's got 2 brick widths on one side and of course on the other just the one. So if we equipped this back into our Technic brick, you've probably guessed the difference based on the last 2 Technic axle elements. And yes, actually it is the same this time. The friction ridges are on the blue one and the tan one has not. So this piece was only introduced in 1993, and in fact it was the friction ridges we got first, as it came so late to the game. All the other Technic pins had already had friction ridges. So this comes in blue, which was only introduced in 2007. Originally it was black, but they replaced black to blue, and it just helps you distinguish them from the black Technic pins. And it's also come in white for the Honda SMO robot in 2001. That's the only time we've seen this piece in white, and chances are we'll never see it again. I think blue is just so common, and anytime this piece is used, it tends to be hidden. So unless we get another Batman Shadow Box set which introduces a new colour, which even then could be a one-off, I think we'll just keep getting this in blue. And the one without ridges was introduced in 2001. It is as old as I am, and was originally light grey, which they replaced in 2006 for light bluish grey, and quite literally a year later they switched it to tan, and that has been the only colour ever since. So let's get testing, and once again, no ridges, nice and smooth, and as you're expecting, the blue one holds up pretty well. But what's interesting about this is this works for double bricks as well, so you could even get another brick on the end there, and that'll be just as firm as the first one. You can see if I hold it by this bottom piece, it doesn't wobble at all. And then once we switch over to the tan element, I think you could probably predict what's going to happen, because you hold it by the one and both pieces just droop. So perhaps this is the sort of piece you want for any sort of contraption or mechanism, as you'll be able to flip them one way or the other. But the blue one's definitely the most popular. Once again, as you can see by this whole drawer, it's mostly blue elements. There's not too much of the tan, and even when building mocks, I don't tend to consider the Technic elements without ridges, just because when you're building something, you are gonna want it to hold together and not to wobble about, especially if it's a fragile build, which a lot of mine recently tend to be. So I hope you learned something this video, and I am enjoying making these more educational videos, as there might be some of these that you just don't know about. So be sure to drop a like if you like the video, and let me know in the comments if you didn't know about any of them. Likewise, perhaps there are other pieces that include both ridges and not. Lego tend to have made these pieces after they made the rest, so they sort of learned by then, and most Technic elements, aside from these, only come in their ridged format. But be sure to like the video, subscribe for more awesome Lego content such as this, and may the bricks be with you always.